Hello everyone, welcome along once again to another edition of the Rebel White Ball. And this week we're going to, I suppose, get straight into it and start with the second round of the four main football championships in Cork. And I would kind of compare this weekend coming to a moving weekend in golf, in that, you know, whatever happens teams this weekend will make a big difference to the final when they go into the final week in a few weeks' time. You know, teams that lost the first day, if they win this weekend, they're back in the championship. If a team lost the first day and will lose this weekend, the third round is going to be all about avoiding relegation for them. In the 26 matches, I think there is at least 7 that will have a derby flavour to them. So I'm kind of terming those under a chapter, the derby diaries, if you wish. And we'll start with the Premier Scene of football, and you know, again you have the 3 groups, and in Group 1 the Bears take on Carrigaline in Porkerwin. That's on Sunday at 2. Carrigaline, who were so lucky, that's not the right term now, who I suppose were so lucky to survive relegation last year. They lost all their matches and they won the last one against Island Rovers by scoring, I think it was 2 late goals. They started this year's campaign, they didn't do too badly, I suppose, against Camogie Rangers, losing by 4 points. They got a late goal and a point. Camogie Rangers contributed as well to them doing okay, because Camogie Rangers shot about 10 wides, and they shot about 10 wides in the first 15 minutes. St. Finbarrs, despite missing Stephen Sherlock in the main part, they looked impressive enough against Beara GAA, were very disappointing, but I think the point must be made about the Mid-Cork club, and it's affecting their hurling as well, that you know, in hurling they drew the first game, were beaten last week fairly well. They have an incredible amount of injuries, and there's also people missing. So I tipped the Bears to win that one against Carrigaline. It'll be a major upset for the books. It starts at 2 o'clock. Then also at Sunday at 4 o'clock in Bandon, in the same group, Camogie Rangers take on Aero, a repeat of last year's pairing, where Aero, did they cause a bit of a surprise? I'm not too sure if you could use that term, but because normally with 3 Cork players at least, you'd be tipping off Camogie, you'd be tipping Aero for this one, but I'm going to go for Camogie Rangers, and it would be a great result for them. It would mean 2 wins. In the second group, if you like, the one with Douglas, Valley Rovers, Mallow and Ballincollig. The big surprise here the first day was the defeat of Ballincollig by Mallow. They lost by 4 points. This weekend in Courtford on Saturday evening at 7 o'clock, it's Mallow who, you know, now they'll be buoyed up, and they've won one of their hurling matches as well, take on Valley Rovers, who will have to show huge improvement on their performance, albeit that they did beat Douglas, but Douglas are so poor this year in one sense, you know, missing a number of players because of going abroad and also because of injury. And Douglas play Ballincollig on Sunday at 4 o'clock. That's the second game in Porkerwin. Look, I'm going to say something stupid like both of them need to win this. Will they do? Or else they'll be facing relegation. But I'm not too sure how it's going to go. If I was asked a couple of weeks ago, I'd say definitely Ballincollig, but because of, you know, the fact that they have injuries, stories emanating from the camp that all is not well, so we'll have to wait and see. Then in the next group, the really interesting one, we have Saturday evening at 7 o'clock in Clonakilty, the big game between Castlehaven and Nemo Rangers. Castlehaven very impressive the first day out when they defeated Clonakilty, and Nemo Rangers having too much for Noosastown. So I think Castlehaven will win this, to be honest with you. I do think they have the better forwards, and so the Nemo Rangers haven't changed their team that much since last year, but again, they're Nemo Rangers, they play with a particular spirit, and you know, it will be an interesting match, and let's hope it's going to be an interesting one. We could do with a good game in that. And Clonakilty, Noosastown, now where do you call this one? It's on in Bandon Sunday 2 o'clock, the first game in Bandon. Noosastown are struggling, no doubt in the world about that. They're the best youth club out in the country, out in the sticks, but they have injury situation. They were beaten well by Nemo Rangers, and even though they won their first hurling, the first round of hurling I think was against Mallow, the fact they conceded 2 late goals against Fermoy last week was a real strike against their kind of spirit. So it's going to be a big one. Clonakilty, on the other hand, did not impress really. They have good backs, but they have paucity of forwards, I would suggest. but I still think that Clonakilty have to, they won the county fine last year. I mean, it would be a major loss, if a major surprise if they were to win that one. In the Senior A football, again we have our 6 matches. In Group A we have Clyde Rovers, who beat Island Rovers by a point, would you believe, the last day? I mean, that wouldn't be a big surprise, but they take on Newmarket. Newmarket were well beaten by Skibbereen, and I know I've been accused of not being fair to Newmarket, if you wish, by referring to them as the Houdini side. Well, they need to be Houdinis next week if they're to survive against Clyde Rovers. That game going on Friday night in Kanturk. The Friday night game started at 7:30, and the Battle of the Island River, the first real derby between Island Rover and Skibbereen. There was a time when there wasn't a club in Skibbereen, and any guy from out in that Church Cross area played with Skibbereen. Well, things changed big time, and if you like, Island Rovers became probably a better known team. They were relegated last year, lost their opening round game. Skibbereen won their game. I think Skibbereen will probably be the favourites for that one. Then the next group, where you Ballingeary, Kishgame, Bandon and Dawneys. The 2 winners last week out. Well, not the 2 winners now. Ballingeary played Kishgame, and you may remember that Kishgame won, but Ballingeary drew with Dawneys. So this is a big game in Macroom on Saturday at 4. You call that one out for me. Kishgame were going well a few years ago, and then the wheels came off, you remember, after winning 2 matches and lost out on getting to the qualifying stage. Ballingeary winning the Pelk Mortis and Gaeltacht, that probably will stand to them, and for that reason and that reason only, we'll give them the nod. Another local derby is the meeting of Bandon and Dawneys, and they know each other well now. Bandon they had a big win in the hurling against Valley Rovers, seriously disappointing last week, and losing the first football match as well. So Dawneys, I think, should be the slight favourites there. That game going on in the picturesque Ballincarriga venue on Friday night. And then you have on to St Michael's, Knocknagree for my Bishopstown. Here the big winners the first day were St Michael's defeating Knocknagree. 4 points they had, 3 points they had to spare. Knocknagree came back into that game. So St Michael's play for and what a year it has been for Fermoy so far. Do you know what I mean? They've won their 2 hurling matches, probably against the hit to a certain degree, beat Bishopstown in the first round of football, so they're on a bit of a high. Michael's are always one of the leading teams here, and they would dearly love to stage left and go up into the next grade. Well, they have a chance now of maybe moving a little bit by getting over from the meeting of Knocknagree and Bishopstown is a kind of, you describe it, both of them lost the last day out, but from last year, Knocknagree are definitely the better side, and they should be fancy to beat Mallow on that one at Sunday too. Moving on then to the Premier Intermediate category, and here again we have some incredible matches, and of course we start off on Friday night, and that's the meeting of Kilnamartyr and Eve Lera undefeated 1,023 days. That's championship defeats now, right, since they were beaten back in whenever October 2019 by Kilshannig. Well, they come into Macroom facing Kilnamartyr, who were surprisingly beaten by a point by Nemo Rangers the last day. They would be the better side. This is a real local derby, and I suppose I'm not too sure where is Chris O'Jones and all this. If he was around, I'd give Ivlera some chance, but I'm not too sure otherwise. The other game, Nemo and St Vincent's of Whitechurch at Sunday too. You have to favour Nemo here, and St Vincent's, I suppose. Look, they struggled against Ivlera, beaten by 14 points. So yeah, we think we go for Nemo there. Then we move down to the game, another derby, the Battle of Bantry Bay, which has been played at Adrigole, I think Saturday at 4 o'clock. Both of them won their first round games, and even though that they wouldn't have played a lot against each other, like Bantry were up there, Caston Bay maybe down a little bit, they've now joined to meet each other, but they are near, their 2 clubs are in close enough proximity. For Rory Dean it will be I suppose an unusual day in that he's teaching in Beara Community School, and would have thought some of the students, some of the players that would be playing for Caston Bay, that should make that. Add a little bit of spice to it. Ada and the Piershik, who things are going so poorly for that club. The horrific defeats in the hurling against Earnlow and Bishopstown, and the last day they were beaten by Caston Bay by 6 points. So look, unless they get their act together, they could be fighting relegation on both fronts. Then we go to the final group game here, and that's Kanturk playing Rockchapel. My God, if you went back in the history between these guys to take some reading, you know, Rockchack were the dominant side for years before Kanturk came of age. They meet in Newmarket. Seemingly that's a favourite venue for those two. And it's on at 4 o'clock on Saturday. I am reliably informed that the 7 Walshes will not score 4-13 against the Rockies, but we'll be keeping a close eye on it. Next derby, Macroom and Eberbawn. This is out the gap time because both of them lost the last day. I think you'd have to fancy Macroom there. In the intermediate A grade, as I've told you so, maybe I'm boring you, am I? By the way, if I am, you can let me know. This is where you have the 16 teams and 4 of them will be relegated. So every match here is so vital. The 2 matches on Sunday, 2 and 4, will start with Kilshannig. Should get over Adrigole. They'll probably be one of the favourites to get to the final in this. They play in Kilmichael. Ballydesmond and Gabriel Rangers. Do you know something? I'd probably give a slight tick to Gabriel Rangers in that one. That game goes on in Bellavona. Then we have the 4 Nicks, Glenmort, Glenville and Kildare. Well, the 2 winners from the first day, Nicks and Kildare, will meet, and it was a welcome win for both clubs. And this now is a deciding, I suppose, a defining match. Are they on the way up, or are they just maintaining their position? And they play in Glenville Sunday at 4. On the Friday at 7:30 in the meeting at Cormac, Glenmork and Glenville. You know, I don't have to tell you, it's an important match for them. I kind of fancy maybe Glenmort in that one. Then we have Mitchelstown playing Glenmire and Lisgould on Saturday at 7 o'clock. I think only one winner here. It should be Glenmire maybe, but it won't be. Mitchelstown are a far better side than them at the moment. And then another derby between Boherbue and was it Mill Street and Cullen. I think, you know, Mill Street are struggling, no doubt about that, and for that reason Boherbue will be buoyed up by their opening row win, you know, against Glenmire. So that's what I think will happen there. Then those games go on Saturday evening at 7 o'clock, and then on Saturday at 2 o'clock, the final group here, we have Aberlour taking on the Bears and Ballyanley. I think they'll win that one, even though they both won the first day. Bears defeating Ballinora and Aberlour beating Drumtariff, and the 2 defeated teams meet in Dunmore, Ballinora and Drumtariff, kind of, you know, for no great reason. But I think I thought Ballinora were going to be better. Only scored 3 points. My God, that's kind of inexcusable nonsense. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I was in a sideline one time where the team I was supposed to have some say in got 3 points. So maybe better off to move on in that one. Anyway, that's a look at those matches, and you know, I know that for the clubs involved, these are great occasions. We saw last week at the hurling, beautiful weather, and my God, as I look out here, all I can think of, there'll be very little problem with turf, with saving turf this year. Incredible tough weather. Moving on to Camogie, and you know, after disappointment last week in Croke Park, we now move on to the championship. And I suppose all we got to say about Croke Park, 2 teams gave it their all. I thought both of them would win. The intermediates just lost by 2 points. The seniors lost, I suppose, looked the slow start, but was, oh my God, it was heartbreaking. It was a great finish to the match. It was heartbreaking that they lost for them. But I suppose the big talking point after was, you know, the fact that their former team coach appeared in the Sunday game, and criticism, there's absolutely no doubt. We've got to realise here that criticism is an integral part in our media coverage of matches. There's money in criticism, and you know, I know none of you want to say that you know, just because they're a ladies team or a female team, they'll have to get a Justice win. But for somebody to be critical of a team that he was in the dressing room with 8 months before, there is a time and there are little fine lines in the sand that you shouldn't be critical. End of, over and out. Anyway, look, they move on, the players will move on, and they'll be back to represent Cork with style and panache in the future. The way the Camogie is this time now, right? The senior Camogie, we'll be talking about other Camogie. The senior championship, there are 12 club teams and 4 divisional teams, and they're going to the top 2 in the club section. So that's in the 3 club groups. 2 of those will qualify and the best third team. And then the 1 from the divisional section. Now in Group A we've got Enniscarra, Corsi Rovers, Douglas and Glen Rovers. Now I don't know how all of those got into that group. Like they're nearly the best of them. And like we're only I think the 6 matches we're going to mention. Next Wednesday night, Corsi Rovers will play Enniscarra. The next group then is Newcestown, Ballygavin, Father O'Neill's and Clodove, and that would be much kind of, I suppose, walk away from it, Paddy, but would be considered a bit of a weaker group compared to the first group. And 2 matches next Tuesday, Ballygavin take on Newcestown. I probably would go for Newcestown there, and Clodove taking on Father O'Neill's. None of them will be winning the championship, but maybe Father O'Neill's, they did well last season in their grade. Then we have Inniskeen, St Finbarrs, Ballincollig and Éire Óg. St Finbarrs will be by far the better team here. And somebody said that Jim O'Connor might be back playing Camogie. I'm not too sure about that. Next Wednesday night we'll find out when Inniskeen play St Finbarrs. And then the division, there are 4 divisions, and Camogie are unlike ladies football in that they stick to the old GA divisions, whereas in ladies football there are just simply 4 divisions that they made when they came into being. But Carbery, Avondhu, Carringdown and Shandoon, and remember Shandoon are the county champions, and deservedly so last week. But 1 match has been played already, and that was played on Tuesday night, where Imo Kelly, the team from East Cork, had a 5-point win over Carringdown, who haven't fielded a team in this competition for quite a while. So it's good to see them back in action. But we'll be looking for that. We'll be looking forward to these matches, and also the various grades of Premier and Junior, and as the week goes on, they will come to our attention. Ladies football, their competitions I think won't be starting for a while, but in senior, and this is going to be, I think, dominated by 2 clubs, and they have divided, there's 9 teams, and they've divided them into a group of 4 and 5, and in the first group you have Mournabbey and Éire Óg. Like, you know, you'd imagine these should be in separate group. But anyway, that's the way they do their business. And Fermoy and Valley Rovers, I would be considered them the minnows in that. But to see 2 will qualify from that, so I suppose the hope is that Mournabbey and Éire Óg will qualify. They'll be in different semi-finals and maybe they'll meet in the final. It'll be predictable. The next group is Inch Rovers, St Val's, Ahada, Bride Rovers and Clonakilty. And you can take your pick here, but the 2 big ones are in the top category. In the intermediate grade, and as I said, we haven't got the groups yet, but the 2 top teams here I think probably would be Castlehaven and Glenmire. And in the Junior A, always a seriously competitive, you've Douglas, Dawneys and O'Donnell and Rossa would be the teams that we'd be kind of keeping, hopefully we'll keep an eye on all of them. Anyway, earlier on when I was on about, in case somebody might say, why didn't he name the person that was critical? That was Paddy Murray, who was the Cork coach, that I was on about. That, like, I do think that if you know, like, they need pundits, and pundits have to be critical, and they have to be objective and all that. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's a time when you shouldn't be a pundit. Anyway, the Premier League, God, I presume we got a bit of crack out of that last week. Well, this weekend, and it will continue on until next May, I suppose, the big games, Arsenal and Leicester. Arsenal will be happy with last week. Man City, of course, take on Bournemouth. Seemingly Bournemouth are sick. Their purchasing power has been so poor, they're favourites to go down, but they won last week against Aston Villa. Stephen Gerrard could be one of the first fellas to get the bullet, so City play them. Southampton take on Leeds. We always have to mention how Leeds fan, and Brentford take on Man United. At this stage, and has been for a while, hasn't it, the whole Man United scenario is beyond belief. The only thing I can say is that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and at least he wasn't critical of the new man in the job. Nottingham Forest didn't get the win last week. They thought they would in their first day out. They have West Ham on Sunday, and Chelsea take on Spurs. Spurs, by the way, all you Spurs fans out there, top of the league, 4-1 winners over Southampton. And Monday, all those of you who devote time, money and effort to following Liverpool take on Crystal Palace. The League of Ireland, Cork City's season continues really well for them, and the 2 games on Friday night, Cork City take on Treaty United. They are 2 points ahead, isn't it? They're 3 points ahead, and they have a game in hand against Galway, and Cove Ramblers things not going well, take you on Wexford, and Cove Ramblers now second from the bottom of that particular league. It's European Athletics Championship time. This starting, I think it's Monday until the following Sunday, and there's a 37 person Irish team going to Munich for that, including 7 from Cork. And obviously we're a bit parochial about all this kind of stuff. I think there's 4 from Lee Vale. Louis Shanahan, who goes in the 800 metres, Michelle Finn in the 3000 steeplechase, Alex Wright in the 35k walk, and Colin Doyle in the 4x100 metre relay. Now, I suppose before we'll move on to them. Phil Healy, who's the real lady of athletics, she goes in the 400 metres and in the 400 metres relay. She's from Bandon Athletic Club. And what a time it is for Bandon Athletic Club. You know, they're developing new facilities, and yesterday we had Jack Chambers, the Minister for Sport, visiting that, and hopefully he brings a few bob with him, they'll need it. But on next Sunday they have their open sports event in the town park, and you know, it's referred to as the Catherine Duggan Memorial Open Sport. And for those of you who would have known Catherine, she passed away on the 12th of June 2017. She was just an incredible woman. You might say an ordinary woman who did extraordinary things, and she really was one of the driving forces. And you know, sometimes when a person passes on who was so good and she was young, I think the good they're doing lives on after them, and Bandon Athletics maybe is I see some great people there, and maybe they're there because of taking inspiration from Catherine. It's nice that their sports day next Sunday is in her memory. Eagle Athletic Club in Cork have Aoife Cook taking part in the marathon, and finally the Glengarriff Gazelle, that is Dara McElhinney. He runs with UCD now, and he has, you know, he's one of the favourites for it? Maybe that's too strong a word. He's such an exceptional, powerful athlete, and you know, represents everything that's so good about it. Anyway, we wish every one of the athletes. Tell me that Ciara McGeegan, the Irish athlete who became the 20th Irish athlete to pick up a medal when she won silver in the 3,000 kilometres, or the 3,000 metres last weekend, that she has a real chance of picking up a medal. And I suppose finally this week, it's, I don't know what's the word you would use, poignant and maybe sadness and hopefully inspiring. Back in 1997, Beara won the Cork Senior Football Championship. Now things have changed in the divisions, but that was a huge win for the people of Beara. They had won it prior to that, back in 1967, and believe me, we can tell you, it meant a whole lot to the people. And if they could win it again, even though the things have changed, it would still mean a whole lot to them. But anyway, as happens in Cork, on county final day, the team that won the championship 25 years ago is honoured. Senior hurling, senior football, and the team to be honoured this year are that Beara team. Now, playing for Beara on that day with their goalkeeper, Padraig Crowley, he was 25 years of age, I suppose, back then. Padraig now lives in Glanmire with his wife Jimmy, and they have 2 children, James and Molly, 8 and 4. But I suppose very sad in one sense, in all senses, is that Padraig, a number of years ago, was diagnosed with brain cancer and had a number of surgeries. But after the second surgery recently, the prognosis, I don't know how do you say this, is not good. And the Beara team that won that championship and the Beara board have got involved in a fundraising venture where funds raised will be held in trust for the future educational needs of their 2 children. Now, I suppose anybody that has ever visited this part of life's immortality and maybe facing the reality, I think one thing that crosses everybody's mind is, or crosses people's mind is, how will the people that I leave behind get on? So when Padraig will pass on, it's a concern, obviously. And these great people that played with him, managed it, and the Beara officers are now their venture, I think, will provide great support and solace in that regard. And to that end, they're organising an online raffle. Be nice prizes. They could have easily gone for GoFundMe, but they wanted to have raffles that they will purchase, and the tickets can be bought there at tenner each, and you can get onto the Beara GAA website. And already as we speak, there are people contributing. This was announced on Tuesday. What did I say? Yes, Tuesday, about their event. And they're also having a golf classic, and that goes on the 15th, 16th and 17th of September. 3-person teams, €60, €20 a person, and a fellow called a gentleman called Josh Crowley is organising that. I'm not saying he's organised, but he's the timesheet, and Barry Murphy will look at, will be taking €50 sponsorship of tee boxes. So, there's nothing I can say that can decrease the sadness of this, but I do think that there will be some inspiration from it, and there'll be comfort gained for Padraig and his family that, the future education needs. I'm not saying they'll be totally looked after. So look, it's an incredible cause. I remember that day. I can't say I remember everything about it, but I do know that when they won that replay, what it meant for the Beara people, and I do know that, and this happens, that the people of Beara, and indeed all over the world, will contribute to this. So until we meet again, take care and mind yourself.